There are wounds no scan can detect. Not in the blood, not on the skin. Sometimes they show up in what's missing. Like laughter, like stillness, like sleep. This is the story of a girl who hadn't slept in 92 days. Not because she didn't want to, but because every time she closed her eyes, the past returned, louder than the dark. And it's also the story of a doctor who knew that healing didn't always begin with medicine, but with a presence that stayed when everything else left. So if you've ever feared silence, if you've ever struggled to rest in a world that never turns off, stay with us. Tonight, we remember how to close our eyes and not be afraid of what comes next. The rain tapped softly against the clinic's high windows like fingers drumming for answers. It was the kind of gray morning that seemed stitched together by silence, the kind of day when nothing rushed and yet everything felt late. Dr. Elias Rey sipped lukewarm coffee from a chipped porcelain mug as he flipped through the last patient note from yesterday. His office, tucked behind layers of quiet hallways, was both refuge and reckoning. Stacks of case files lined the bookshelves, each folder a silent witness to lives unraveling slowly, sometimes silently. His eyes paused on one name, underlined in faint pencil. Harper Lane. 14 years old. No diagnosis yet. Referred by the school nurse after a panic attack in biology class. But it wasn't the file that troubled him. It was the note someone had scribbled in the margins. She hasn't slept in 92 days. That number echoed in his chest, not clinically but viscerally. Elias had worked with war veterans who couldn't make it past 30, terminal patients who barely endured 2 weeks. But 92? That wasn't just insomnia. That was something closer to exile. A knock came at the door. "Patient in room 2, doctor," the nurse said softly. He stood, smoothing his coat out of habit. The hallway was dim, lit by amber sconces and the hum of lives unraveling behind closed doors. His shoes echoed soft and steady, as if the floor knew this rhythm well. He opened the door. There she was. Harper sat curled in the corner of the chair, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion. Her backpack drooped beside her, half unzipped, a journal sticking out. Her hair was tied in a knot, not fashionably messy, but practically undone. Her hands were clenched tightly around something small. A clock. A plastic alarm clock. Its batteries missing. Elias sat across from her, no clipboard in sight. Only his presence. "Do you want to talk?" he asked. "Or should we just sit for a while?" She shrugged. "I don't care." That was a lie, of course. He'd heard it before. "I don't care" was the scream of someone drowning quietly. He nodded. "That's fair." Silence filled the space like fog. After a moment, he asked, "When did the sleep stop?" She looked down. 92 days ago." He didn't ask how she knew so precisely. Instead, he asked, "Did something happen then?" "No," she said too quickly. Then she corrected herself. "Everything." He glanced at the clock in her hands. "Why carry that?" She turned it once in her fingers. "Because it's the only thing in my room that's quiet." He let the weight of that sink in. Elias had seen hundreds of cases, night terrors, trauma, sleep paralysis. He had read every study on adolescent neurochemistry, on dopamine, cortisol, screen addiction, disrupted circadian rhythms. But none of those articles had taught him what this girl's silence just did. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She nodded. "If sleep were a person, what do you think they'd say to you right now?" Harper stared, then blinked, and finally whispered, "They'd say, 'You weren't supposed to see that?'" He knew then. This wasn't about sleep. It was about safety. It was about something she saw when she was supposed to be safe, and now rest meant risk. Eyes closed meant memory. Elias didn't write anything down. Instead, he said, "Then let's make it safer. Together." Harper didn't smile, but her fingers uncurled slightly from the silent clock. It became routine. Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Harper arrived, always early, always silent. She never asked questions, never greeted anyone, never removed the red hoodie. But she came. Dr. Rey had long stopped measuring progress in breakthroughs. In his world, a patient returning was an entire chapter on its own. During their second session, he didn't sit across from her. He sat beside her. Still no clipboard, no laptop, just a blank sheet of printer paper and a set of colored pencils between them on the table. Harper glanced at them but didn't move. "You don't have to draw," Elias said gently, "but they're there in case words feel too loud." She picked up a black pencil. She didn't draw anything in particular. Just circles. Soft ones at first, then harder, darker ones, digging into the paper until it tore slightly. Elias didn't comment. Instead, he picked up the blue pencil and began shading next to the black, without touching her circles. Just close enough to meet. That was how they spent the hour. Color. Silence. Breath. When she left, she didn't say goodbye, but she took the paper with her. That night, Elias found himself looking through an old file. A boy named Miles, 13, who used to draw windows with bars. The bars got thinner as trust grew, until they vanished entirely. Elias wondered what Harper would draw next. The third visit, she said 6 words. "My mom thinks I'm possessed." Elias tilted his head. "And what do you think?" Harper shrugged. "Maybe she's right." He didn't refute her, didn't try to correct the label. Instead, he asked, "What does she see when she looks at you?" Harper pressed her palms together. "A girl who doesn't sleep, doesn't eat, who flinches when people touch her, who doesn't pray anymore." "And what do you see?" Harper looked down. A broken phone screen, a room with the door always locked, and a ceiling I count cracks on till morning. He inhaled slowly. "You know what I see?" She didn't answer. "I see a girl who still shows up." That was the first time she looked at him without fear. Not with trust yet, but with curiosity. It was the 4th Tuesday. Power had gone out in the early hours of morning, transformers blown by an unexpected windstorm that swept through the city like a warning. The clinic was running on backup generators, flickering lights casting long, uneven shadows down the hall. Elias didn't cancel any appointments, especially not Harper's. When she arrived, she didn't seem to notice the dimness, or if she did, she didn't care. She walked in with the same quiet steps, the same red hoodie, the same backpack slung too low on one shoulder. But there was something different. Her hair was down. She sat in her usual chair, but she didn't curl in on herself this time. She looked around, surveying the room like someone cataloging a space for the first time. When her gaze reached the windows, she paused. "It's too bright," she said quietly. Elias followed her gaze. Sunlight filtered harshly through the tall glass, now unsoftened by interior lights. It was sharp, unforgiving. He nodded, then reached for the old canvas curtains stored in the corner. Without speaking, he moved to each window, pulling the fabric across, muting the daylight into a dusky gray. Harper let out a breath so quiet it almost wasn't there. "Better?" Elias asked. She gave a small nod. "Too much light feels like being watched." He sat down, not across, but next to her again. There was no clock on the table today, no colored pencils, just stillness. "Did you dream this week?" he asked. She shook her head. I don't remember. Maybe I did, but I forget as soon as I wake up. Do you want to remember? Harper hesitated. Only if it's not the same ones. What are the same ones? Harper stared at her hands. A ceiling fan. Not spinning. A door that doesn't lock. A phone buzzing, but no one answers it. My mom yelling through a wall I can't find. Elias listened. She continued, barely audible. Sometimes I see my face in the mirror, but I'm not blinking. That sounds terrifying. It is, but it's worse when I don't see anything at all. Elias nodded slowly. That space between sleep and waking, that's called the hypnagogic state, a kind of doorway. For some people it's peaceful, for others it's where the mind screams last. Harper looked at him. What does it do for you? He thought for a long time. I see my father, he said. I hear him ask if I'm tired yet. What do you say? Sometimes yes. Sometimes I don't answer. Harper looked at the ceiling. I'm afraid of the space between, she said. The space between what? Everything. Awake and asleep, here and gone. Okay and not okay. I feel stuck there all the time. Elias leaned forward. What if we try building something for that space? A story. Not to fill it, but to make it safer. She was quiet. Then, stories can be dangerous. They can, he agreed. But they can also be doors. Harper reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded paper. She smoothed it out on the table. A drawing, crude, pencil lines, a room with no windows, a girl sitting in the center, hugging a clock. Around her, words, tick, 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 drawn like they were screaming. This is what it sounds like, she said. Elias traced the edge of the paper with his finger. What if we change the sound? To what? He looked at her. To something only you can hear. Something that doesn't demand anything from you. She didn't answer, but for the rest of the session she stared at the paper and her fingers tapped a soft rhythm on her knee. Not tick-tock, something slower. Something like a breath finally remembered. Harper came in wearing earbuds. Not to listen to music. Elias doubted they were even connected. They looked like armor, a way to mute the world before it demanded too much. She sat. He nodded. No words passed between them for 5 full minutes. Then he said, Have you heard of the hypnagogic state? She blinked, pulled one earbud out. What? It's the space between waking and sleep, he explained, like standing between 2 trains, not quite on either. Some people dream there. Others remember things they've tried to forget. Harper looked out the window. I don't dream anymore. Elias hesitated, then reached for something behind him, a small audio recorder. He placed it gently on the table. I want to try something with you, he said, only if you're okay with it. She tilted her head, wary but curious. I call it narrative recall, he continued. We build a bedtime story together, but not for kids, for people who forgot how to rest. Her eyes narrowed. A story? Yes, but not made up. Your story. Told the way you wish it had gone, or the way you wish it could go. Just the beginning. Just enough to make your body believe it's safe to close its eyes. Harper swallowed. Hard. What do I have to say? Anything, Elias said. Or nothing. You could just listen. She didn't speak for a while. Then, I used to fall asleep listening to my mom hum through the walls. She didn't know I heard. Elias leaned in. What did it sound like? Harper closed her eyes, hummed a single line. It wasn't a melody. It was a breath. He pressed record. That's our opening line, he said. Let's follow it wherever it wants to go. For the rest of the session, they didn't discuss trauma, or fear, or therapy goals. They recorded fragments of peace, her voice, soft as snowfall, reciting memories like they were fiction. A story with no monsters. A room with no locks. A night where she fell asleep before the story ended. When she left, she didn't take the recorder, but she said something before walking out. "Next time, can we write the middle?" Elias didn't answer. He just nodded. But when she was gone, he rewound the tape and listened, and for a moment, he too forgot his own ghosts. Harper arrived late. It was the first time. She didn't run, didn't apologize. She walked in like someone stepping back into a room they weren't sure would still be there. Her shoulders held less tension. Her face wasn't brighter, but it wasn't hidden either. Elias looked up from his chair, but didn't comment. Instead, he gestured to the seat beside him. She sat. Silence, soft like a shared blanket, wrapped around them. Then, with hands that didn't quite stop shaking, Harper pulled something from her backpack. A folded sheet of paper, creased and recreased until the corners frayed. She didn't hand it to him. She placed it on the table between them, gently, like setting down a fragile artifact. "I wrote the middle," she said. Elias didn't move right away. He let the moment breathe. Then, slowly, he unfolded the page. It was a story. Just one scene. A hallway with no echo. A room with walls painted the color of calm. A bed, not made perfectly, but safe. A door that closed to hold warmth in, not to shut the world out. A clock that ticked, not to rush, but to reassure. And a girl who said, for the first time, "I'm tired," and wasn't punished for it. Elias read the page twice, then again. He didn't critique. He didn't praise. He looked at Harper and simply said, "It's beautiful." She shook her head. "It's not real." "Not yet," he replied. "But stories are rehearsal, for truth." She looked down. Her fingers tugged at her sleeve. "My mom still thinks I'm broken." Elias leaned in slightly. "Do you think you're broken?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Sometimes I don't know which parts of me are real. Which parts were built just to survive." He nodded. "That's not broken. That's adaptation." Harper blinked fast. "She told me last night to snap out of it, said I was faking. That must have hurt." "It didn't," she said. "Not the way she thinks. It just made the quiet louder again." Elias let that sit. Then, gently, "Did you sleep?" She hesitated. "A little." "How much is a little?" 2 hours. He smiled softly. "That's not just sleep. That's a truce." Harper tilted her head. "Do you think it's possible to stop being afraid of the dark?" "I do," Elias said. "But not by erasing it, by making friends with what you find there." She looked at the clock on the wall. "It's not ticking," she whispered. "I turned off the batteries last week," Elias said. "I didn't want it to rush us." A long pause. Then, slowly, Harper reached into her bag again. The same silent clock. She set it beside the paper. "I think I'm ready to let it make noise again." Elias raised his brow. "Why now?" Harper met his gaze. "Because I want to know I'm still here. Even when the minutes pass." He nodded. "Would you like to put the batteries in?" Her fingers trembled, but she opened the back panel. They clicked into place. Tick, tick, tick. She didn't flinch. Elias smiled. "Next time," Harper said, voice barely above a whisper. "Can we write the end?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to, because sometimes knowing the ending is close is the very thing that makes the present bearable. Harper arrived differently this time. She didn't wear the red hoodie. Instead, a loose gray sweater covered her frame, sleeves tugged over her palms. Her hair was tied back neatly, as though she had considered the mirror this morning and chosen not to hide. In her hand, dangling by a fraying string, was a brass key. Elias noticed it the moment she walked in. She sat before saying anything, then placed the key on the table between them like it was an offering. "My mom gave it back," she said. Elias waited. "She said, since I'm sleeping again, she doesn't have to lock my door at night." The words didn't sound triumphant. They weren't angry either. They landed somewhere between disbelief and disorientation, like someone still adjusting to a room they'd never expected to enter again. "Have you used it?" Elias asked. Harper shook her head. "I haven't even touched my door since." He studied her face. "And how does that feel?" "I thought I'd be scared," she whispered. "But I'm not. I'm confused. I thought having the key would make me feel powerful, but it just made me realize how long I didn't have it." Elias nodded slowly. "Sometimes freedom doesn't feel light at first. It feels heavy with memory." Harper stared at the key. "I keep thinking, why did I have to earn this?" He didn't answer. Some questions aren't meant to be answered in words. They sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, the sun pressed gently against the curtains, and the old clock on the wall ticked in even, forgiving beats. Harper finally spoke again. "Last night, I dreamed I was standing in a hallway, the one from the story, and there were doors all around me, but none of them were locked, not even mine, and I wasn't scared." Elias smiled. "That sounds like a powerful dream." She nodded. "When I woke up, I didn't feel lost. I didn't check the time. I just breathed." She glanced at him. "I think I'm ready to end the story." He raised an eyebrow. "What kind of ending do you want?" Harper leaned back. "Not the kind where everything's fixed. Not the kind where I magically sleep 8 hours and hug my mom. Just one where the girl doesn't have to flinch when someone knocks." Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Then let's write that together." She pulled out her notebook, flipped to a blank page, and together they began with just one line. She opened the door because she wanted to, not because she had to. Then Harper paused, tapping the end of her pen on the page. Her expression turned distant, searching, as though the sentence she wanted was hidden in a memory she hadn't fully understood yet. "She used to knock so hard," Harper said quietly. "Like I was a prisoner, like something dangerous might crawl out if she didn't check fast enough." Elias stayed still. Harper continued. "One night, she didn't knock. She just walked in. I was changing. And when I screamed, she said it was my fault for locking the door." The air in the room tightened. "I stopped locking it after that," Harper whispered. Elias nodded, slowly. "That must have been terrifying." Harper looked down at the key again. "She gave it back, but not with an apology, just like it was a spare part I'd dropped." "She might not understand what it meant to you," Elias said. "She never does," Harper replied. "But maybe that's not the point anymore." Elias tilted his head. "Then what is?" Harper pressed her thumb against the key's edge. "That I'm the one holding it now." For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Harper wrote the next sentence in her notebook. "The girl left the door open, not because she was waiting, but because she wasn't hiding anymore." Elias leaned forward, reading it upside down. "That's not an ending. he said. No, Harper agreed. It's the first page of something else. The waiting room was quieter than usual. Elias sat alone in his office, reviewing Harper's notes. Not her medical chart, but the pages she'd begun leaving behind, fragments of her rewritten story. Each one different in tone. Some sharp, some soft, but all honest. He hadn't seen Harper in 3 days. Their next session was scheduled for tomorrow. So when the knock came, a hesitant, uneven rhythm, he assumed it was an early patient. But it wasn't. It was her mother. She stood in the doorway with her hands clenched around a handbag that looked too rigid for the way she moved. Her eyes darted, not in anger, but in uncertainty. She looked nothing like the woman Harper described, at least not right away. But trauma has layers, and not all of them scream. "Dr. Rey?" she asked, already small in the doorway. "Yes, please, come in." She stepped in slowly, did not sit until invited. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. Elias nodded once. "Harper didn't send you, did she?" "No," her voice caught. "She doesn't know I'm here." He waited. "She said you're the only place she can breathe." That silence that followed didn't feel like guilt. It felt like shame, heavy and reluctant. "I don't understand her anymore," the woman said. "I thought I did. I thought I was protecting her. But now she looks at me like I'm the one who locked the room from the inside." Elias leaned forward gently. "Sometimes when someone is hurting, the person closest to them becomes the easiest target. But sometimes, I was the one who hurt her," the mother whispered. "Wasn't I?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for the recorder. "I want to share something with you. It's a recording. She made it voluntarily. It's not a diagnosis or a confession. It's just a story." He pressed play. Harper's voice, soft and unsure, came through the speaker. "She used to hum through the wall. I thought she didn't know I was listening. Maybe she didn't. But that's the version I kept. Because the other one, the one where she stops humming and starts yelling, I can't sleep inside that version." Her mother put a hand over her mouth. Her fingers trembled. "I was tired," she said, almost to herself. "I was so tired, working, worrying. She wouldn't talk, and when she finally did, it was always late, always angry. I didn't mean to yell so much. I just didn't know how else to be heard." Elias paused the recorder. "There's still time to write new pages," he said. "I'm not asking to be forgiven," she said. "I'm asking to be allowed back in, even if it's just the hallway." "She's rewriting the story," Elias said quietly. "And in it, you're already starting to appear, not as a villain, not as a savior, but as someone who might stay." The mother nodded slowly, holding back tears. "What do I do?" "Next time," Elias said, "you knock, and this time, gently." Harper arrived with a duffel bag this time, not a school backpack, not a hoodie pocket full of broken pencils and half-thoughts. A real bag, packed. She stood in the doorway of Elias's office, but didn't sit. "I want to try something," she said. Elias looked up from his notes. "What kind of something?" Her grip on the strap tightened. "A sleepover." He blinked. "Here?" Harper nodded. "You said sometimes you sleep here, that the clinic can be safe. I need to know if sleep works when I'm not home, or if it only works because I'm still afraid of going back." Elias studied her. The request wasn't childish. It was precise. A test, a step. After a moment, he nodded. "Okay, let's set some ground rules." By 8 p.m., the waiting room lights were off. Elias stayed late, working quietly in his side office. Harper was in the therapy room, lying on the couch with her sleeping bag, the clock beside her, and a copy of the story she'd rewritten in her hand. There was no ritual, no lullaby, just quiet, and one small lamp dimmed to a glow. At 9:13 p.m., she called softly through the cracked door. "It's not coming." Elias stepped inside, sat across from her on the floor. "What's in the way?" "I don't know," she whispered. "It's like it waits until I want it, then it hides." He reached into his coat and pulled out the audio recorder. "Want to try again?" Harper nodded. He pressed record. "This is a story," he said, "about a girl who learned to sleep not because she escaped the world, but because she rebuilt it." Harper closed her eyes. He kept speaking, voice low, rhythmic, like water on stone. He told the story in gentle waves, the girl who forgot how to breathe, who counted shadows instead of sheep, who didn't need fixing, just needed someone to stay when the night got too loud. She didn't respond, just breathed. Slower. Slower. At 9:38 p.m., she slept. Elias didn't move. He just watched the small rise and fall of her breath, rhythmic and unfamiliar, like a new song she was learning from within. He let himself remember the last time he'd seen someone fall asleep in peace. His daughter, years ago, before the accident that changed everything. He'd forgotten how sacred stillness could be. At 10:27 p.m., Harper stirred. She sat up quickly this time, gasping lightly, eyes wide and searching. Elias leaned forward. "You're okay. You're here. The story's still going." She nodded slowly, her breath shaky. "I dreamed." He didn't push. "I was in the room again," she said. "The real one, with the locked door. But this time, when I reached for it, it opened." A long silence passed between them. "I didn't know how much I wanted that," she whispered. "Not just the sleep, the choosing." Elias felt something shift in the room, not in her, but in both of them. This wasn't about sleep anymore. It was about permission. At 11:04 p.m., Harper crawled back into her sleeping bag without a word. She faced the window this time, not the wall. Her hand rested on the ticking clock. Elias turned off the recorder and dimmed the lamp further. At 2:11 a.m., Harper stirred again. She sat up briefly, disoriented. Elias didn't move. "I'm still here," he said softly. She lay back down, whispered, "I know," and slept again. That morning, when sunlight cracked through the blinds, Elias found her sitting cross-legged on the couch, her hair messy, her face calm. "I didn't dream the second time," she said. "I just slept." He smiled. "That counts." She zipped her bag, paused. "Can we do it again sometime?" Elias nodded. "Only if you bring the ending next time." She grinned, not big, not bright, but real. And for the first time, she didn't look like the girl who forgot how to sleep. She looked like someone remembering how to wake. The clinic was quiet that morning. The kind of quiet Elias had grown used to. Not silence, but presence. A stillness that no longer pressed against the ribs. Harper hadn't come in. She didn't need to. There was a letter instead, folded neatly, left on the chair she always chose. No envelope, just her handwriting. Stronger now. "Dr. Rey, I slept all the way through the night. I don't know how to say thank you in a way that doesn't sound like a line from a book, but I think that's okay. I think you already know. I kept the story, but I also started a new one. This one isn't about being afraid of the dark. It's about what happens when the light comes back and you realize you're still here. I hope you sleep soon, too." He sat for a long while after reading it, not because he didn't know what to feel, but because, for the first time in years, his own chest felt quiet. No ghosts rattling behind his ribs, no need to keep vigil. Just the slow unfolding of rest, earned, honest, shared. He picked up the letter, slipped it between the pages of her old intake file, then turned off the light, and let the room be still.